Well, Lord, Geno Smith is in New Jersey. He is taking his physical with the team. He has agreed to a restructured contract where the Raiders will pay the bulk of the salary. The Jets will take on the rest. And the Raiders are sending Geno Smith and a 7th-round pick to the Jets in exchange for a 6th-round pick. You remember, Geno Smith started his career with the Jets, spent his first 4 years in New York. Now he's back to finish his story. As we put up in the tweet, Geno once said, "They wrote me off. I ate right back." Well, the letter got lost in the mail. Geno's back now. The mail has resurfaced, as has Geno Smith. He's ready to come back to New York in a full circle moment to finish his career. As for the New England Patriots, they get the wide receiver help that they needed. Romeo Doubs reaches agreement on a 4-year deal worth up to $80 million. Romeo Doubs had been on the market. The Patriots had been looking for wide receiver help after moving off of Stephon Diggs, and now they get their help. Braden Smith, the Colts' versatile offensive lineman, reached agreement today with the Houston Texans. Stays in the division on a 2-year deal worth up to $25 million, including $13.5 million guaranteed. The Texans have put an heavy emphasis into improving their offensive line. They've now done that. They get a deal done with Braden Smith. And the Detroit Lions, who moved on and traded David Montgomery, now are signing Isaiah Pacheco to a 1-year deal. He'll be the type of physical runner that complements Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit. He leaves Kansas City, who made the move for the Super Bowl MVP, Kenneth Walker. The offseason is the time for player moves. Old back out in Kansas City, old back out in Detroit, new back in Kansas City, new back in Detroit. That's how it works, Laura.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why the NFL looks a lot different today than it did 2 days ago. So much action yesterday. As I told you off the top, it's been a little slow today. We'll see if any more action happens in the next couple of hours. Adam's with us the whole way. We take you right till 5 p.m. right after this NFL Live. We got Jason McCourty, Louis Riddick. Louis, you got news on your phone?
No, you know what? I'm just constantly like Adam just inundating us with all this info, man.
Jeremy Fowler as well. Again, we'll go right back to Adam as soon as anything happens, and he'll be bringing us all the latest. But let's start with Geno Smith. Louis, when you think about the fit there for Geno personally, but also what it means for that offense and Aaron Glenn's team, what comes to mind?
I think what comes to mind first and foremost is it's about relationships with Geno, because going back there can't be easy considering how it all started and then how it ended and now how it's restarting again. Full circle moment. Look, that's putting a positive spin on it. It'd be interesting to hear what Geno's really feeling, privately and personally. But I think the most important relationship is the one he's going to have with offensive coordinator Frank Reich. That's the most important thing for me right now is what's that first conversation going to be like? How is Frank going to present this to him as far as, look, this is how I'm going to use you. This is how we can work together. We understand what's happened here in the past. We understand what we don't have. What we do have, though, is we got a hell of a running back in Breece Hall. We got a bunch of young studs on this offensive line.
Absolutely.
We still need some wide receivers to go along with, Garrett Wilson and really kind of get that part of it going. But this is how I can help you finish off your career the right way, because no veteran wants to kind of just drift off into the sunset with a bad football team. And I think Frank can help him with that.
Absolutely. And I think for Geno, the journey is so amazing. To think that for Jets fans, Geno Smith coming back to town, they're probably excited to get Geno Smith.
Yeah.
You're hearing about this trade, and I think if I'm Geno Smith, I would have loved to be a free agent. Just from the standpoint of I would have gotten a chance to choose my destination and really evaluate and see. But I think coming from the Raiders, and the one thing you mentioned I think is so important, if I'm a quarterback, you talked about the young guys up front on the offensive line. What he just left with the Raiders, he was getting beat up last year. So now you get an opportunity to have 5 guys in front of you that can protect you. You have Breece Hall, like you mentioned, to be able to get the ball on the outside, and Fowler's looking like, man, I got stuff going on. But I hear you. So for Geno Smith, you're excited for the opportunity to go back and right or wrong almost in the sense of how you started your career.
Yeah, quick add. Minnesota Vikings were a pivot point here because a lot of these quarterbacks that were becoming available, including Geno Smith, Kyler Murray, others, looked at Minnesota as a destination. So the Jets took the guesswork out. They said, we're just going to get you off the market, even if we have to give up a late-round pick. To us, that's worth it when the Raiders were already covering a lot of the contracts, so they get him for cheap still, and he doesn't get to go somewhere else because Geno was on the short list for Minnesota.
Yeah.
Well, a reminder, too, that Kyler Murray, if you're thinking about him, and we've talked a lot about him going to Minnesota, but he won't officially be released until tomorrow. That's why some of that hasn't happened, although you do wonder here, Jeremy, just a quick follow-up, could you see Kyler traded like what we saw here from Geno? We didn't really expect to see this, but is that possible?
This does open the door for that. The Arizona Cardinals are doing the same thing that the Las Vegas Raiders just did. You have to cut him by the first day of the new league year, which is tomorrow. So the Raiders said, hey, let's just hold out until we get a pick for him. And the Jets wanted to make sure this worked out for everyone, took him off the market. Certainly the Vikings could do the same thing. But if you're Kyler Murray, if he has any power in this situation, I think he would like to be released. And then he could take his time a little bit. Maybe even go on an official team visit, a free agent visit. Go visit Minnesota. Go talk with maybe even the Colts because they need short-term help while Daniel Jones is getting back from an Achilles. So there are a lot of factors in play.
We heard Orlovsky throw that out on Free Agency Frenzy with Pat McAfee a little while ago. Adam, when you think about just this quarterback market and what we're talking about here, what's important context for?
Well, Laura, Kyler Murray has a bonus due in his contract later this week at the end of the week, and the Cardinals are not going to pay that bonus. They've already announced that they'll move on from him, but they're going to release him before that bonus is paid. Now, whether they release him tomorrow by 4 p.m. or Thursday or Friday remains up in the air. The hope around the league is that it's tomorrow, Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern, and Kyler Murray gets released. I think once he is released, assuming there is not a trade partner that materializes the way that there was one for Geno Smith, and the feeling is that there won't be, that Arizona will wind up releasing Kyler Smith, I think everybody across the league just assumes ultimately that Minnesota is the most likely landing spot for Kyler Murray. There always could be another team that steps in. We'll see how this all plays out this week. But if we're going to lay guesses as to how it all plays out, Kyler Murray gets released this week, probably tomorrow, 4 p.m., and then shortly after, you would think Minnesota would reach out and see if the Vikings could work out a deal.
And we'll be on TV then, too. So Adam will be with us to give us all the latest as that news comes in. Geno Smith going back to the Jets. That's the news that we know right now. His last appearance for the Jets came October 23rd, 2016. Let's talk about the free agency board when it comes to the wide receiver market. We've already seen some action there a little while ago. Romeo Doubs going to the Patriots. We thought that the Patriots would try to grab somebody. You see some key names there highlighted that are still awaiting a new opportunity. But when you think about what the Pats did, we knew that they were in on some of these other names, even to J-Mac. But what does Doubs bring to their offense, specifically in Drake May?
I think what I love about him is his route running ability. For Drake May, you get a guy that you can line up on the outside and he can win. And I think that's going to be a major part. He can get down the field as well. We saw that from Kayshon Boutte. He was a guy that separated and made plays down the field all season long. So when you get a guy like Romeo Doubs that you can line up on the outside and he can get one-on-one coverage on a third down situation. You can move him on the inside, and he has the ability to separate so sudden off the line of scrimmage, which is such a difference maker when you're matched up against a cornerback who likes to be up in line of scrimmage and likes to be aggressive. That's the part that you love about Romeo Doubs, a hands catcher type of player. So I think he's a guy that you don't want to give up a ton for A.J. Brown. I think that's what it probably came down to it. The relationship with Mike Vrabel and A.J. Brown is one that you would have been excited about. But are you willing to give up a first-round draft pick when you're only in year 2 in a new regime? I think that was the reason they decided not to, and you get a guy like Romeo Doubs that can impact the outside as well.
Yeah, it's all about cost, right? I mean, I'm sure Mike would have loved to. Look, I mean, if you're picking between those two guys and you're sitting in your lineup, you're going, look, I don't want anything to do with number 11 from Philly. I think I'll take 87 from Green Bay. But you're right, Jim. Like, I mean, he's a dude. Look, Romeo Doubs is one of those dudes who's just so slick at the line of scrimmage. Very good at the top of the route. Very sudden. Very deceptive. And he can run all of the routes. He's one of those dudes who's not afraid to come across the middle. You saw him hitting those big 4 routes, those benders coming inside. He'll go up and take those. He can win on the fades. He can win on the one-on-ones on outside. So, yeah, I mean, this was obvious what they needed. It was just a matter of, what do we have to pay in order to get the kind of production, the kind of profile, wide receiver that we need. They got it. They filled it.
Yeah, so where are we with the A.J. Brown situation then, though? Are they just not going to trade him, the Philadelphia Eagles, or who else could be in the market for him now potentially?
Another pivot point there is the New England Patriots, because my sense this morning was that they had sort of cooled on A.J. Brown, or at least there wasn't any steam for a deal becoming imminent, and they were working on this Romeo Doubs situation. So Doubs was deciding between the New England Patriots and the Washington Commanders. Both teams had competitive offers out for him. When he chose New England, now they have a lot of money committed to Romeo Doubs and some other players that they signed in free agency. I'm not so sure they're going to allocate the resources to go get A.J. Brown, and they were considered one of the top contenders for Brown if the Eagles were to do a deal. So the Eagles are in a tough spot because if they trade A.J. Brown, they have to take on a lot of dead salary cap hits. So as a result, they're asking for the moon. Nobody has matched that. So the sense right now is that there's nothing imminent. It could still kind of recreate, but right now I don't sense it.
Yeah, Adam, is Howie Roseman and company, are they going to just kind of stay on that asking for the moon type philosophy here? Is anybody getting close to that? Or people kind of waiting out the A.J. Brown situation? What do you know?
Well, Laura, what happens here is that there are windows of time and pockets in which you can make a trade. There was a window in time, I think, last week before the Max Crosby trade got done. Now, the Eagles never made an offer on Max Crosby, but they're watching because they're trying to get a deal done with Jalen Phillips. Now, if Max Crosby still were available, would the Eagles have been backing on Max Crosby? I think they might have been. There also was a window right before the start of the negotiating period. I was going to call it the new league year that starts tomorrow. The negotiating period. Monday, 12. I confused my time. It's all a bunch of BS. Free agency starts at noon on Monday. Anyway, there's a window before there where if the Eagles are going to make a move on A.J. Brown, you would want to do it there so that you know the resources you do and don't have to go attack the heart of free agency. Well, the top players are off the board. Jalen Phillips is now in Carolina. So there really were a couple of windows last week where if a trade is going to happen, it would have happened then. Now, that doesn't mean a trade couldn't come up, but I think there's no urgency. And as Jeremy said, the steam is out right now. So could this bubble up again before or during the draft? Yes, it could. Could it bubble up again before June 1st or right after? It could. Training camp? Yes. It's gone away for right now. It doesn't mean it's gone. But there's no urgency and there's no reason for the Philadelphia Eagles to act on this at this time.
It puts my brain back to thinking about, okay, so that means he very well could be back with that team. And you think about the way that things materialized last season, it's a little hard to wrap your mind around that. Again, we have you covered on all facets here during free agency. Adam's broken the big board right now. I'm calling it the big board because why not? It is big, okay? Free agents that are still available. Some of those names that are highlighted. You see on the left side of your screen, the quarterback still out there. Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins. Haven't talked a ton about him. What's going to happen there? You got Rashad White, running back, Aaron Jones. You've got Jawan Jennings and Stephon Diggs. Some names still out there that could make your team better. But how about when it comes to a running back that just came off the board? Isaiah Pacheco going to the Lions. Adam, what's the latest there?
One-year deal for Isaiah Pacheco in Detroit, Laura. The Lions traded away David Montgomery last week to the Houston Texans, needed a big physical back, and have decided to sign Isaiah Pacheco, who leaves Kansas City at this time 1 day after the Kansas City Chiefs made their own move at running back, going on to the Super Bowl MVP Kenneth Walker. And last year, the Chiefs had one of the worst rushing attacks in the league. They prioritized their backfield. I think there's a feeling around the league that Jeremiah Love, the Notre Dame running back, won't be around at pick number 9. And so the Chiefs make the bold move to go sign Kenneth Walker, the free agent running back from Seattle, who now will be the featured back in the Chiefs backfield this upcoming season. As for another big-name running back, Travis Etienne leaves Jacksonville and goes to New Orleans on a 4-year, $48 million deal worth up to $52 million. He will be the newest weapon for the Saints' former rookie quarterback, Tyler Shuck. That should help out. They signed David Edwards on their offensive line as well, but Etienne returns to Louisiana, where he's from. And now that raises questions about Alvin Kamara, the longtime Saints standout running back. It's hard to imagine that the Saints are going to pay Travis Etienne what they're going to pay him and keep Alvin Kamara. His future in New Orleans is in question, maybe even in doubt. Are they going to look to trade him? Are they going to look to release him? I think when you speak to people around the league, there's a healthy dose of skepticism that Kamara will be back in New Orleans, and there's a real chance he's played his last down with the Saints.
And then you look around and say, where could he fit? We'll continue to keep an eye on that. But let's go back to the Lions moving to bring in Isaiah Pacheco after they agreed to trade away David Montgomery to Houston last week. Lewis, how does that combo sound, Jahmyr Gibbs and Isaiah Pacheco in that backfield?
Yeah, you can see how they're trying to marry it up because we know how Isaiah runs. Isaiah is really all about effort. Everything is a strain. Everything for him looks like this is the last carry of my life. And I'm going to kind of approach it as such. What's interesting is, look, number one, look, he's had some durability issues. He's dealt with some injuries. He hasn't really been able to stay on the field. And if you watch how he plays, because of the fact that he plays so high and it's so herky, he takes some wicked shots. So you just need him to stay healthy because, look, Jahmyr now obviously is clearly the focal point, but you can't wear him out. So I think the most important thing he can bring to the table for Detroit is availability. He needs to stay on the field. And it's just interesting to me that, you know what, clearly, you know, in Kansas City, Eric Bieniemy was looking for a different style of runner because when you watch Kenneth Walker, Kenneth's kind of a glider. even though he's so strong in his lower body, he just kind of like flows through the line of scrimmage. Isaiah's just very much so. It's just like all over the place. But his competitive spirit you love. He just got to stay available.
Yeah, Lewis, I spoke to a source close to Pacheco who said that he's really happy to reset his career because he kind of felt like he got buried a little bit in that Chiefs offense the last 2 years. When I go back to that Super Bowl run, coming off the 23 season, 24 carries, 15 carries, 24 carries, 18 carries in the playoffs was helping. They were riding him to a Super Bowl in a lot of ways, and so he feels like he can go to a place where he doesn't have to take all the load with Jahmyr Gibbs there. But they're going to want to rest Gibbs and keep him fresh for the year. So Pacheco will get some runs where he has games where he can make a real impact.
How do you think he compares to what they saw out of David Montgomery? Because he got a ton of production out of Montgomery there.
I think they're going to use him in the same fashion. We got used to the Sonic and the Knuckles. They're going to have to find some new characters to try to come up with the duo. But I think to your point, Lewis, with how Pacheco runs the ball, you think about third and short. You're going to want him where they had Montgomery. You get down closer to the goal line. You're going to want a guy like Pacheco to take some of those hits away from Jahmyr Gibbs and give him that opportunity. I think with Pacheco, it goes back to kind of who he is as a person. Coming out of Rutgers, he runs the ball in the fashion of his upbringing and everything that he carries along with him. So I think it's a good spot for him. When you're a free agent, you get to choose where you're going to go. Why not go to Detroit where there's a head coach that embodies your playing style? I think it's going to be a really good fit for him.
You liked that Rutgers part, didn't you?
I mean,
Little
I
Rutgers
was hoping somebody
Rutgers flex.
No, we couldn't bring it up. That was for you to bring up. We're going to let you do that, J-Mac. The Chiefs now, they've been busy too, okay? Let's talk about some of the moves that they've made, some players they've held on to. They're bringing back Travis Kelce and Tyquan Thornton. They added Kenneth Walker III, as we just talked about, Alohi Gilman and Kyrus Tonga in free agency. But that came at a cost, right? They dealt Trent McDuffie to the Rams for 4 picks, including LA's first rounder this year, and let Jalen Watson and Brian Cook go in free agency. Now, hey, speaking of Travis Kelce, he spent some time with Pat McAfee earlier on Free Agency Frenzy. Take a listen.
It was pretty short and brief, and the Chiefs knew where I was the entire time on it. I think you always need to take a step back. You always need to take a step back, breathe, let the emotions of the season settle down and see where the body is and things like that. But I'm still in love with this game. I still love going to work, putting on the pads, grinding it out, and just, playing the game. And I think my best opportunity was playing for the Chiefs yet again and running this thing back with Pat Mahomes and Coach Reid. And the biggest thing was coming back was that we got to be even hungrier than we've been before. And talking to Pat, talking to Coach Reid and the guys, there's a lot of dog mentality right now to get this thing fixed. And that mentality itself is already kind of motivating me to get to where I need to be during the season.
Yeah, you heard some of it there with Pat, but Lewis, I mean, these guys pay attention. They know what's going on. They know what's being said about them. Part of what you also heard Travis say was how excited he was that Kenneth Walker's coming into the fold. Are there still some holes that you'd like to see the Chiefs fill if they're going to really be hungry and get back to the level of play that they expect out of themselves?
Sure. Like, if you stay on the offensive side, they still have to get another wide receiver, for sure, a guy who can truly be a true number one, the kind of guy who can take hits over them at 2 levels. For sure, they need someone. They need a Jones. They need speed on the perimeter. And now in the secondary, look, David Merritt, the secondary coach, he's got to be looking at Brett Veach and looking at Steve Spagnuolo going, hey, man,
give me somebody.
You just took everybody from me.
They do have some picks, though, early 9 and 29 in the first round.
They do, but there's a lot of work still to be done. There's a lot of work because you know that everyone else in the AFC is catching up. They've already caught up to them. There's a reason why they're picking 9th. It's because they kind of missed on a few things. And now, I'm telling you what, Brett Veach, the general manager, is going to have a lot of long nights because he has to nail this draft.
Yes.
And he has to nail whoever he brings in still in unrestricted free agency.
I think you even saying nailing the draft, you talking about the picks specific to the cornerback in the secondary position. Not only nailing them, those guys are going to have to be ready to play now. And I think that's the part of it. When you watch both your corners, McDuffie, a guy that has so much versatility inside and outside, you lose him and Jalen Watson and Brian Cook. You think about a Steve Spagnuolo defense and the amount of moving parts and the complexity to it. You need guys that can come in and learn it right now and go out there and be impactful. So I think to your point, that's the scary part. I like them signing Alohi Gilman and Kyrus Tonga up front. Yeah. Those are guys that were difference makers on good teams a year ago. So I think that's a good addition. But losing guys.
The only thing I will say real quick, Jeremy, is that they've done this before. They won the Super Bowl with a bunch of young guys when they beat Philadelphia down in Arizona a couple years ago. It's just they're putting that on them again, that they're going to have to deliver like that again if they want to still be contenders.
Yeah, when I talk to people with the Chiefs, they bring up really that same thing that, we're going to bet on ourselves in the draft because we've done it before. We've developed young talent, and they know they need cheap labor. Like, they'll acknowledge, hey, we're still balling, but we're balling on a budget. Like, that's how they're feeling right now. So you saw they let the safety Brian Cook go for $13 million a year at Cincinnati. They backfill with Alohi Gilman for $8 million. So you save a little money and you get a player you like. You're going to see a lot of that. So the running back was the big spin. They're going to get some corners in the draft for sure.
Yeah.
They have the capital now to
no
do
doubt.
it.
Yeah, there's some good ones in this draft as well. But again, good and going to have to play immediately. It's a good point. All right, if you want to, going to Atlanta, by the way, and we're still waiting on more information for Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins. Now, Geno Smith not on this board because he was traded, but that was the big news from just a little while ago. Geno Smith, Adam Schefter, going to the Jets once again.
Well, Laura, that's correct. It's a big trade. It goes and sends Geno Smith back to the place where he started his NFL career. Back to New York. He's there taking his physical now. The trade is agreed to. Geno Smith has reworked his contract. The Raiders will absorb the bulk of it. The Jets will carry a little bit more than veteran minimum. And the Jets essentially flip-flop picks to make sure that they get Geno Smith and he can't go anywhere else. You see the Jets tweeted a short time ago, "Take me home, country roads." Maybe Lewis wants to sing that for us after we get through with this little news update.
I'm trying to get you going.
I won't sing anything involving West Virginia.
Wow.
I would like to hear Lou sing that when we're done.
They know how we feel about each other down there.
As for other news right now, Tua Tagovailoa is in a situation where he has agreed to a one-year deal with the Atlanta Falcons, where he will join Michael Penix to compete for that starting job in Atlanta. Obviously, a new coaching staff, new front office, and now another new quarterback to go along with him. As for Aaron Rodgers, he continues to be out there waiting. The Pittsburgh Steelers want him back. He has been non-committal about being back. I think the feeling is that he's more likely than not to come back, but nobody really knows with Aaron Rodgers other than the Steelers have left the door open for him to return. They're hoping that he does, and we'll see if he can come back. If he doesn't, there will be another veteran option out there. Kirk Cousins is expected to be released in the next 24 hours from the Atlanta Falcons. That means he then would become a free agent. But you're seeing these quarterbacks fill up these spots day by day and taking more and more spots, so there aren't a lot of landing spots anymore. But there will be a landing spot for Kyler Murray once the Arizona Cardinals officially move off him, which could come tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern. If and when he's free, a lot of people around the league look at the Minnesota Vikings as a favorite in that particular situation to see if that deal will get done. Again, Kyler Murray's still on Arizona's roster. They're still carrying him, but it's only a matter of time before they move on. He becomes a free agent, and Minnesota comes into focus.
That's going to be tomorrow, right? Adam, by the way, you did a great job of illustrating all of that, but here's a little more of a visual picture of what the quarterback scenario looks like across the league. These are the teams that are looking for a quarterback either as a new starter or even for depth. You see right there, the Steelers, Cardinals, they're at the top of the list in terms of teams who could be in the market for a QB, but as Adam just told you, all the reasons why they may go other directions or why we're in a little bit of a holding pattern here. Jeremy, what are you hearing about this quarterback market right now?
Well, we have the Minnesota Vikings need to fill that spot, and they have an option with Kyler Murray, as Adam alluded to, that he's on their short list of quarterbacks that they would like to get. And so
there's a joke in there. Sorry.
I just thought that.
Keep moving. I couldn't.
I think they're going to be okay with short kings as their quarterback, because he is going to be cheap. And he's going to be about $1 million because he's got the guaranteed money from the Arizona Cardinals. And so that should shake out here fairly soon. Meanwhile, the New York Jets are still looking for a backup quarterback. Carson Wentz is on their radar. He's got a long history with Frank Reich. You still have Jimmy Garoppolo out there that could fill a sort of bridge number 2 spot somewhere. Didn't seem to work out with Arizona. It looks like they're steady ahead with Jacoby Brissett and whatever options they have. Gardner Minshew as well.
Lewis, Minnesota's the one that we keep talking about for Kyler. Let's live in a world where that happens. I want your thoughts on that. But where else would make sense for him as you think about these quarterback-needy teams?
Wow. Look, I think you think about Pittsburgh, right? And whether or not, like, a guy like Mike McCarthy, Kyler Murray, DK Metcalf, that looks like that to me seems
Michael
like something.
Pittman.
Michael Pittman, exactly, who they just acquired. That to me seems like something like when you're talking about the fact that they wouldn't have to make a huge financial commitment to him, obviously, because of the money that he has coming from Arizona, the dynamic playmaking ability. Look, I don't really get into too much of like he's a guy who's coming from playing in Arizona. He'd have to play in Pittsburgh. I know Omar Khan said, look, I need an AFC North type of quarterback. No, you need a quarterback who's a playmaker, period. You need a guy who can throw touchdowns, a guy who can distribute the football, put seats in the stands, and kind of engender some hope.
But they're waiting on Aaron Rodgers. Like the timeline may
nothing ever really seems to truly make sense with what Pittsburgh is doing when it comes to quarterback right now. I mean, maybe Omar has a different kind of plan that we just don't know about, and he has something up his sleeve. But I think that's the other place that this logically makes sense to me. That why wouldn't you be investigating that? Maybe they are. Maybe they're just not talking about it, but maybe they are.
I think that's the interesting part because if you're Pittsburgh, you're looking at the landscape right now, and Kyler Murray is the best available. So I think we're trying to figure out the spots for Kyler Murray. Minnesota Vikings make so much sense. And I think Dan said this down at the Thunderdome as well. But if you're the Indianapolis Colts, you're at a point where you're trying to negotiate a deal with Daniel Jones. You've put the transition tag on him. We've seen in the past tags be taken off of players as well. Not to say that they're going to do something of that nature, but even if you have him locked in for just a year, how do you not have a conversation with Kyler Murray? For Shane Steichen, their head coach and play caller, a guy like Kyler Murray gives you that dual threat that he's been able to thrive with, whether it was Jalen Hurts, whether it was Daniel Jones just this past season. You've seen the success with that as well. So I think for Kyler Murray, seeing Geno Smith get traded for, watching Tua Tagovailoa agree to join the Atlanta Falcons, you now have become a hotter commodity now when you get released.
Yeah, quick add, too. Joe Flacco. I've talked to some teams that liked his tape last year in Cincinnati.
I don't doubt it.
So I do think Pittsburgh is a backup option if Rodgers doesn't work out.
North
even Minnesota, I think he could find a home one of those.
I think the one thing that, look, we kind of like dance around a little bit with Kyler Murray, but I think teams definitely have this discussion, internally, is exactly, look, we understand what you're getting on the field with Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
What are you getting off the field?
Yeah.
And how does that fit with us? Because, look, if you have Daniel Jones, like, you'd have to remove obviously the transition tag if you're bringing him in there. Is he what you want for your organization? No question on the field he's what you want. But some of the reasons why Arizona is moving on from him don't really have to do with what he did on the field.
Yeah.
And maybe
that wasn't the issue.
Maybe he needs a new group.
That's
maybe
right.
Things would be different for him, right? Like, I always want to see these guys get these opportunities. The talent is unbelievable. Adam, when you think about what Lewis is throwing out there, maybe about the Steelers being interested in Kyler Murray, what do you hear there, especially knowing that Aaron Rodgers is still looming for them in some ways?
Right. I'm not expecting Kyler Murray to wind up in Pittsburgh. I think they're waiting on Aaron Rodgers. And if Aaron Rodgers doesn't come back, number one, they happen to have a strong belief in last year's rookie quarterback, Will Howard. Mike McCarthy is drawn to quarterbacks who are especially sharp, and they believe that Will Howard is somebody who could easily pick up their offense, adapt, and excel. Now, we'll see whether he can. He hasn't proven it at the NFL level, but they are confident in Will Howard. I think if Kirk Cousins is out there, he certainly would present another option if Rodgers decided he didn't want to play. But option 1 and 1A is Aaron Rodgers returning to Pittsburgh. The Steelers still are hoping that happens, even though the quarterback himself has been non-committal.
Yeah, I mean, as you guys have talked about there even today, Pat mentioned it when Aaron Rodgers was on his show. He said he hasn't really heard from the Steelers side of things yet. So some of that has to get figured out here over the next, I'm going to say, few months, because Rodgers doesn't have some sort of tight timeline. All right, another big thing that happened today, Romeo Doubs going to the Patriots. Adam, we knew the Patriots were seeking a wide receiver. They get Doubs. How did all that come together?
Yeah, they've been thin in the wide receiver market, and Romeo Doubs has been talking to teams, talking to Washington, talking to New England, but ultimately New England steps up with a 4-year deal worth over $70 million, could climb up to $80 million with incentives. And Romeo Doubs is a player that shined in Green Bay. And Green Bay's lost a lot of talent this offseason. The latest player to leave there is Romeo Doubs. It doesn't preclude the Patriots from one day trying to get A.J. Brown, but it certainly offers them some insurance for a team that moved on from Stephon Diggs this offseason. As for the A.J. Brown, again, just because Doubs wound up there doesn't mean that they can't get it done, but there's no urgency on anybody's part right now for an A.J. Brown trade. This one looks like it'll just sit out there for a little while. It certainly could flare back up at any point. His future in Philly is uncertain. There have been trade discussions, but the Eagles have been steadfast that they're not looking to trade him, that they wouldn't trade him unless they got an offer they couldn't refuse. And so far, that offer has not materialized.
Interesting, the door's still open there for the Patriots, potentially. We're not expecting that anytime soon, as Adam alluded to. But the Eagles have been uncharacteristically quiet so far this offseason, right? Howie Roseman, you see there on the screen, he likes to make moves. They lost Jalen Phillips to the Panthers, Nakobe Dean to the Raiders, Reed Blankenship to the Texans. That trio played over 1,700 snaps for the Philly defense last season. So far, they've signed 0 free agents. I mean, J-Mac, that's big. There's a lot of continuity there that's now gone.
Yeah, and you knew it was kind of coming just because of all of the guys they had on the defensive side of the ball. Quinyon Mitchell's going to have to get paid. Cooper DeJean at some point is going to have to get paid. Jalen Carter. There's so many guys, you can't just keep them all. So I would remind Eagles fans to just pump your brakes. We're only 2 days into free agency, and the league year hasn't even started. So I think that Howie Roseman wheeling and dealing, like there's still a chance and an opportunity to make some of those moves, but it is kind of scary when you're seeing all these guys.
J-Mac.
All these guys leaving the building.
If I'm a fan, I'm like, what's going on with my team? My team's gone.
Trey Hendrickson is still out there. Who knows what the price tag is?
You gotta pay
right
him a
now,
lot.
it doesn't seem like anybody has reached what he's asking for. So as that number potentially could come down, if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, do you start to potentially get into that conversation?
I will say this. If you're a fan at home and you're like, oh, man, my team, I don't know what's going on. This doesn't feel good. The draft is strong in some key areas. Wide receiver, there's some good pass rushers. There's some key people. We saw that combine. People are speeding all over the field. There's a lot more coming your way here. And Lewis is going to tell you some things that you're going to want to know, okay? Who should people be going after? The best available. Some great options here, Lewis. I'll let you take it away. Show us what you got. I'm really going to be shocked to see who the number one guy on the list is here.
Yeah, I know you're going to be, aren't you? And I think Jeremy's going to have a few things to say. But, we'll start off with the first two. Look, Trey Hendrickson has to be on the forefront of everyone's mind right now because it's the second most important position in football outside of the most important position in football. Where do these two guys ultimately wind up? It's about asking price here relative to how people value him. And with him, it's about, one, getting released first, and then two, seeing ultimately what place he winds up deciding to go and who wants him.
Lewis, Trey Hendrickson's got 6 or 7 teams. They are in the mix trying to figure out what can we get this elite pass rusher for. Is his market going to drop to us? But he's holding firm. He wants $30+ million per year. My sleeper, Buffalo Bills. They're at least on the periphery. We'll see if they get heavily involved. Kyler Murray, most people around the league are expecting him to be in purple. Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, what's interesting is that you talk about the Buffalo Bills, and I'm going to change up my order here a little bit and put this guy up here. Okay? So when you think about Joey Bosa, there's a football team out there that loves to stockpile defensive ends, right? And they always like pass rush. They've made their bones on pass rush. Philadelphia Eagles. Could he be a short-term rental? I remember Sean McDermott talking to us about the fact that Joey can do one thing for sure still at a very high level, and that is absolutely rush the passer. I'd love to know what is going on with Juwan Jennings. Yeah. He did nothing but catch the ball and be productive for San Francisco just a year ago. Some other interesting names. Kevin Byard, one of the smartest, most cerebral free safeties in the NFL. Reek Woolen, a very good player still. What happens with Caleb on Chason? He had some good snaps. There's still some quality players here I think you could get at some tremendous value.
Yeah, this is a great list. Juwan Jennings, watch for the Commanders because they were in on Romeo Doubs. They have money to spend at receiver, so do they pivot to Jennings, who's really the next best option on that list? Kevin Byard, he was supposed to be a Chicago Bear. They were talking to him. I thought he was going to be extended there. Didn't happen. Now he's free. Still a ball hog. Watch for Tariq Woolen, too. Yes. He's going to have a market. Long corner with ball skills.
Absolutely.
Reek Woolen, man. Hey, that's another thing, too. You keep seeing the Seahawks. They're losing players. They don't get why. When you win the Super Bowl, sometimes that happens. All right, I couldn't figure out where to stand there. I just left.
That's why I was trying to get out of your way.
Over here?
No. You need to be over there. I need to be out of the way. Okay, here's who's still available. We're going to see if we see any more action here in the next couple hours. Reminder, we are with you until 5 p.m. NFL Live comes your way right after this. Our Sports Center special continues on, though, and we got more to get to. When we come back, talking some big spenders. Who spent the most so far? Almost $2.8 billion spent. We'll talk more about it.